Which set of running backs is going to make the final 53-man roster for the Buffalo Bills? All coming up on today's edition of the Dom Mafia Report. Yo ho ho, Dom Mafia. Welcome to yet another edition of the Dom Mafia Report. And yeah, we have a little series coming our way. As many of you know, it is currently the dead season in the NFL, leading up to training camp where absolutely nothing is going on. That's right. I'm sure you're scrolling through Twitter and you're seeing a bunch of puff pieces saying that Aaron Rodgers breathed 3 times when asked whether or not that he was going back to the Packers. Essentially, most reporters and most content creators are just pulling stories out of their ass. But I figured this is definitely an appropriate time for us to start dissecting who is going to be a part of the Buffalo Bills 53-man roster. I just ended up doing a wide receiver video, and I highly recommend that you go check that one out once you're finished with this. We're going to do an entire series for each and every single position group until we finally determine the final 53-man roster. Today is going to be running backs. There's no question that our running game absolutely sucked last year. And as much as I would have liked for us to make a more significant upgrade to the position group, I have a feeling that the 4 names that I'm about to drop are going to make Bills fans somewhat content. I wouldn't go as far as happy, but we'll take what we can get at this point. Before we dive into the specifics, I do want to go ahead and just give a couple of announcements. And number 1, I am giving away either a PS5 or an Xbox Series X, and I'm announcing the winner on the day of our very first preseason game. In order to enter, all you need to do is be a subscriber to this YouTube channel, screenshot proof of that, and then DM it to me over on Instagram at RealDanMitchell and follow me there as well. As soon as you do that, you will now have a chance of potentially taking home a next-gen console. Number 2, I have a shout out for my most recent YouTube member, and that's going to be BLEAV Bills Mafia. Dude, thank you so much for joining the veteran level. Ladies and gentlemen, and a lot of you always ask me, Dan, how can I support your channel? Well, frankly, the best way of doing so is simply by smashing the out of that like button. But say you ever want to go the extra mile, and becoming a YouTube member or being a Patreon contributor are the next best thing. You can find the Patreon link in my description, and you can join this YouTube channel with the join button right next to the subscribe button. Say that you don't, it's completely fine. The fact that you guys watch my videos in the first place is enough for me. And without further ado, let's go on ahead and dive into this. So yeah, Dom Mafia, like mentioned previously, our run game last year was less than stellar. And a lot of people might go out and say, oh, Dan, it was definitely our run blocking. And I'm finally starting to warm up to that theory. Now, I'm pretty sure it was Dion Dawkins that was interviewed saying that since the Bills made such a drastic transition into a pass-first offense, the offensive line wasn't as familiar with run blocking, or they weren't as comfortable with it because they were rarely ever called to do so. Hence, once we did attempt to run the ball, not a lot of amazing things ended up happening. I mean, obviously, we had Devin Singletary, we had Zack Moss in the backfield, and neither of them really had electric seasons, to put it lightly. However, we did end up making a couple of additions this year. Well, one notable addition at the end of the day. And while I still foresee the Buffalo Bills being a pass-first offense, I'm really hoping that our run game can wake up, frankly. As far as the room is concerned, number 1, absolute lock is going to be Zack Moss. Now, with Zack Moss, before he got injured, from the last half of the season going into the playoff game before he got injured, he was finally starting to come into his own. I mean, dude man had a couple of reception touchdowns, and he was really being that bowling ball of a running back that we truly needed. In my opinion, I have a feeling that Zack Moss is about to be dominating the majority of the carries this year, barring any type of injury. I think that he's going to be our number 1. I think his sophomore season is really going to be a damn. Brandon Beane was smart as hell for drafting that guy when he absolutely did. Zack Moss, 1000% a lock. Let's move on. Number 2, Devin Singletary. Now, Devin's first year, I was absolutely pumped. And he absolutely took the league by storm, being a very, very talented running back year 1. But then in year 2, it seemed like he completely reverted back to a running back that I didn't recognize, and a lot of us didn't recognize at the end of the day. Now, going back to it, we understand that maybe a lot of it had to do with the whole run blocking scheme from our offensive line, But apparently this offseason, Devin has been focusing a lot on his weaknesses. And so I don't foresee Devin getting worse than he was last year. In fact, I'm hoping for the opposite. I'm really hoping that he can go on ahead and at least show 75% of what he was during year one. And obviously he does need to work on his hands as far as being a receiving running back and really making the most out of all of the plays when his name is called. He's not the fastest running back on the face of the planet. He's not the shiftiest. But when he does find open lanes, he can be pretty effective. And I'm really hoping that whatever he did during this offseason, Bills Mafia will be able to see those improvements firsthand. Number 3, the third spot on the Buffalo Bills running back room is going to be Matt Breida. Ladies and gentlemen, I am absolutely pumped about this Matt Breida situation. In fact, I'm surprised a lot of people don't talk about this more. So we ended up saying that probably one of the biggest issues we had last year from the running game specifically, minus the blocking, minus very little production, was the fact that we did not have any speed coming out of the backfield. Matt Breida, he is the person that is going to completely change that scheme. Now, the only issue with Breida is the fact that he has struggled tremendously staying healthy. I mean, he ended up getting traded over to the Miami Dolphins after experiencing an injury in San Francisco, and so ultimately being replaced by Mostert. He ended up going to Miami, and in my opinion, I think that he was greatly underutilized over there, so I'm curious to see what Sean McDermott, what Brian Dable are going to be able to do for him. If this guy can stay healthy, he's proven to be a great pass-catching running back. His speed is there. He's going to be able to hit these gaps a hell of a lot faster than Zack Moss and Devin Singletary. This might be our sleeper, and who knows? This guy might be our number 1 if he does decide to stay healthy. That's the third spot on the running back room. Number 4 is going to be Taiwan Jones. Yes, I do foresee us taking 4 running backs on the 53-man roster this year. Do I see Taiwan Jones taking more than 1% of all of the running back snaps this year in 2021? Absolutely not, unless something goes significantly wrong and the Buffalo Bills running back room gets plagued with injury. Let's knock on wood and hope that that doesn't happen. But he is a tremendous contributor on the special team side of things and provides some pretty decent depth. Henceforth, I see him being the 4th spot on the Buffalo Bills running back room via the 53-man roster. Dom Mafia, thank you so much for tuning in to yet another edition of the Dom Mafia Report. Do me a favor, what do you think about this whole running back room? Who are you most excited to watch? Who do you think is going to be our RB1 this year? I really want to hear your thoughts on that. Thank you for tuning in. I will see you tomorrow. And before I let you go, always remember, let's go Buffalo.